called upon all jihadists from the region. Afghan Arabs participated, which was a successful intervention for them, with the pretense justification of spreading Islam and fighting socialist non-believers at the time. Disregarding international calls for a ceasefire, the Arab League actually called it a war between two states, or no unity shall be enforced. It resulted into a full-blown, decisive military takeover. There was no political process or any dialogue of any sort. A real devastating and destructive era for the South. But that was just the beginning. The majority of Southerners viewed this as an outright occupation. Forced retirement followed, missing political and military constituents, death penalties issued to many who opposed or even deferred with the Sana'a regime, wanted lists. Prominent Southerners were, between killed, detained, or exiled. The exiled were scattered all around the globe as refugees without, as non-permanent residents, leaving behind careers, families, friends, without a home to return to. Again, no attempts to discuss, negotiate, or reconcile the situation by the Sana'a regime, further displaying themselves as an occupying force.
Yeah.
But it didn't end there. Southern constituents were deprived an equal right or opportunity from governmental positions and civil society organizations, diminishing health, educational, and crucial institutions in the South. Even educational scholarships were given to the Sana'ani elites at the time. The lack of opportunity caused for a demographic shift. Southerners fled from their homes, their country, in pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness, as Northern elites poured into the South, which they used as their playground. Now, all of this oppression, and it doesn't compare to the worst of them all, which was the robbery of the identity.
Yeah.
Anyone who spoke about their Southern roots or independence was not only frowned upon, but it was punishable by imprisonment, torture, or even death. Movement in 2007. Tens of thousands of people participated in peaceful protests, hoping to reach the international community and hear their cries. Again, no attempts to negotiate or even remedy the situation by the Sana'a regime, further displaying themselves as an occupying force. These protests always have been faced with live ammunition. Thousands were detained, tortured, and killed. Although these atrocities were committed, this did not derail the Southerners. Rather, this only made the Southern people more united, more determined, and to set aside any differences that they had in the past. For what was already a clear picture to them, only became clearer that the only way out of this mess is through independent. State resources were being used to dismantle the Southern movement, attempting to divide them into factions, to cause friction amongst them. Even that only made Southerners more aware and more united, more than ever. Again, no attempts to remedy the situation by the Sana'a regime, further displaying themselves as an occupying force. After the Arab Spring in Yemen, which was 2011, then came the joke of the NDC outcomes of 2013 that completely disregarded the proper representation of the Southern people. Now, this is all long before the Houthi coup. Southerners had a massive buildup, waiting for an opportunity or a spark, just to gasp free air. The Houthi coup came about in September of 2014, whom also buried the NDC outcomes. Southerners resisted even prior to the coalition intervention. They held battlefronts in Aden against the Houthis and their allies. When the coalition intervened in March of 2015, spearheaded by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, and launched Operation Decisive Storm. Southerners seized the momentum and viewed it as the opportunity that they've been waiting for to end this occupation. Working hand in hand, they in a hard fight, allowed for liberation in the south from the Iranian-backed Houthis. This led to the formation of the SDC in 2017, where it was endorsed by a million-person support rallies all across the southern governorates. This followed with the government of Yemen's mismanagement, corruption, lack of services, inflation, instability, diluted institutions, and diseases that plagued the south, which was Houthi-less. So in the liberated areas, there was such mismanagement that the living conditions actually were deteriorated even worse than even parts of some of the Houthi held locations. The people of the South recognized this as a form of a systematic collective punishment. In August 2019, the people lost patience and took to the streets again, and the STC was compelled to protect them as they demanded the expulsion of the government. In November of 2019, the Riyadh Agreement was signed after months of negotiation by the Hadi government and the STC. Shortly after, the Muslim Brotherhood, whom expanded under the Hadi government umbrella, waged a war within a war in the south, completely neglecting the common enemy, which was the Iranian-backed Houthis. The Riyadh Agreement was intended to do four main things, along with the joint governing North-South cabinet. The first was de-escalate the war within the war. The second was the delivering of much-needed services. Of course, to unite the anti-Houthi fronts and to form a joint delegation from the SDC and the Hadi government for the negotiation peace process. Unfortunately, the Hadi government sees this as another opportunity to delay, prolong the conflict, misinterpret, or even renege on the agreement itself. They have not been cooperative. In fact, they've only exacerbated what was already a dire situation. Now, given this context, the important points to take away here, to recap somewhat, is the southern issue dates way back before the Houthi coup and the coalition intervention. So we could remove the misconception of it being a UAE project. The shattered confidence and these southern zero tolerance level that will not accept half-measured solutions, which will only entice inevitable conflict, further deteriorating what was already labeled the worst humanitarian crisis. Another point to take is never will Aden accept Sana'a as its capital again, nor will Sana'a ever accept Aden as its capital. Mm-hmm. Anyone who thinks that a unity is even salvageable is dreaming. In fact, a unified Yemen only ever existed on paper. An indicator to that is that the answer to the question of how many Southerners are aligned in the Houthi ranks, the answer is zero. These fighters didn't come from the sky, nor did they come from another country. Their fighters are made up of North Yemenis from all parts of North Yemen, going down the pre-90 borders. Today, you have the Houthis who are controlling the majority of the north, and you have the SEC with the support of the majority of the south, and then you have the Hadi government, who views that at the end of the Yemeni crisis could very well mean the end of their legitimacy. The SDC holds high in priority the local and regional issues, such as conducting counterterrorism and standing against all who support them, preventing the Iranian expansionist ideology, protecting international interests and waterways. But above all, the SDC adheres to the cause of the people and will be held accountable to them and their aspirations. The SDC also views the Riyadh Agreement as a bridge to a proper representation of the Southern people in a UN-led negotiation peace process that can, at the minimum, guarantee the right to self-determination, in which we are a major component to the end of the Yemeni crisis and a comprehensive, long-lasting solution. By reinstating two sovereign, peaceful states that share mutual economic, social, and security benefits, as opposed to one war.
Shukran, and good evening to everybody. I am quite persuaded by the presentation of our friend Sulaiman, and I wish that my colleagues, the UN rapporteur on summary and arbitrary executions, and the rapporteur on torture, and the working group on arbitrary detention, etc., had been here and listening. The main problem with the people of southern Yemen, the main problem with the Southern Transitional Council, is that the mainstream media out there does not report on you. The fact that there are two separate peoples with separate histories, that you have southern Yemen that for 130 years was administered by Britain, and that developed its own character, its own identity, totally different from the north. The fact that southern Yemen was an independent state, nobody knows that outside of Yemen. So